Jonathan Turley, Andy McCarthy, both Fox News contributors. And gentlemen, good morning to both of you. Play a little clip here, different snippets over the past 4 years or so. These are the times, some of them, that Joe Biden said, I didn't talk business with my son.
I did not know he was on the board of that company.
I've never discussed my business or their business, my sons or daughters. I never discussed a single thing with my son about anything having to do with Ukraine.
I've never spoken to my son about his overseas business dealings.
I have never discussed with my son or my brother or anyone else anything having to do with their businesses, period.
So you can believe that and think it was just about the weather, and maybe in the end that's what it was. Professor Turley, here's the question. I don't know what holds up in court, but based on what we think we learned yesterday, what is the best argument? Where should the audience focus on as of now?
Well, the circle here is tightening. That is, we know without any question, in my view, that Hunter Biden was selling influence and access. Joe Biden was the subject of that influence peddling. I also think it's clear that the president has been lying for years, lied during the campaign, lied as president. And those lies were repeated by White House officials at his behest. All of that's quite serious. But I think in the coming days and weeks, we're going to see additional information coming out of Congress on payments from foreign sources. And the question is, what did they think they were buying, and what did they buy through this influence? These calls were designed to show that Hunter Biden could deliver, that he had the vice president on speed dial, and that was conveyed almost 24 times.
And it was interesting. So Mark Halperin, who writes Wide World of News this morning, comments that the media now has to show. They can no longer pretend like this hadn't happened. And now they know, and they were starting to write in some of the pieces today, Andy, that Joe Biden lied knowingly and repeatedly about his connection to Hunter's deals. And from my experience, once the media starts on one track, basically, it's like herding cattle. You just turn them a little bit this way, and now everyone's going to have that point of view. Now, they might not put it on the front page, but they all know it, and now we all know it as well. The other thing, Andy, is that I know that you worked in the federal government, and so did I. Here's this thing here. It's called the 14 Principles of Ethical Conduct. And I went through here, and I think they violated at least 7, but it wasn't Hunter Biden's obligation to adhere to the ethical obligations. It was Joe Biden's. And to me, that was what the Devon Archer piece showed yesterday, is that Joe Biden, even if there would have been a first call, like, hey, Dad, can you talk to these guys? I'm on the phone. And Joe Biden is gracious. He says, hi, yes, the weather's really nice here. Fine. The next call should be to Hunter Biden from his dad saying, don't ever do that again, because it is against all ethical norms. But he didn't do that.
No, of course he didn't do that, because he's the engine that makes the business run. You know, in a normal investigation, an enterprise case, if you wanted to prove up any kind of a conspiracy that ran through a regimented outfit or even a loosely put together outfit, you would spend most of your time as a prosecutor building up or explaining how the enterprise works, like what the different aspects of it are, who are the different players. The way you set that up in order to make people understand that the insulated player in it, the person who makes everything go in an organized crime family, is like the boss of the family, who you never get actually giving an unambiguous order. But when you show how the whole enterprise works, you can see precisely how a nod or a conversation about the weather could actually be a lot more meaningful than it seems to be on the surface. But I would just say, Dana, that, you know, if you didn't have this herding effect that you just discussed, a lot of the patent silliness of what they're describing, or what the comeback explanation is here, would be obvious. For example, if you're selling the illusion of access, that's fraud. You know? I mean, if you're selling something that doesn't exist, that's fraudulent. These people are only paying the Bidens because of Joe Biden. There's no other reason to pay. And the other thing, this nonsense that they were buying Washington rather than buying the Bidens. Hunter tells Tony Bobulinski, I think we have this actually in a recording or an email, I can't remember which, but he says These people want to be in business with the Bidens. You know, Bobulinski's complaining that Hunter doesn't really do any work, and Bobulinski's doing all the scut work to give this thing a corporate structure, and Hunter's off doing stuff, but he's getting a big cut of the profits. And he comes back and says to him, I know it's not fair, life's not fair, but they want to be in business with the Bidens. They didn't want to be in business with Washington. Burisma could have gotten any number of Washington insiders who actually knew something about the energy business. They didn't need that. They needed a Biden, because Joe Biden was the one who was running the Obama administration's policy to Ukraine. So there's like a million little instances that it's obvious here that what they're buying is the influence and access of the Bidens.
Andy, just a quick answer. We got
the power there only comes from one person.
Do you think they're building a good case? Yes or no?
I think they're doing what they can within the constraints of a congressional investigation, because the Justice Department is AWOL.
And Jonathan, do you think that this leads to an impeachment inquiry?
It most certainly can lead to an inquiry. I don't see how the Congress can walk away. I mean, what Representative Goldman said yesterday, that we should just end this, is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, it's an obligation of Congress. It's like saying that Watergate was just a property crime and we're going to leave it there. You know, you have to find out what's going on, and the public isn't buying it. You know, they're not buying any of these spins.
Which is pretty much what the House Speaker, Kevin McCarthy, said last week. Gentlemen, great to have your big minds with us today. Jonathan Turley and Andy McCarthy, thank you.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.